Roles with asymmetrical information. Although that sounds like a very complex mechanic, it is actually quite simple and is probably one of my favorite board game mechanics of all time. But how does it work? Before we figure out how roles with asymmetric information works, first we must break it into three distinct mechanics that make it up, those being roles, asymmetric, and information. Roles more so refers to hidden roles, a mechanic that roles with asymmetrical information tends to fall under. The hidden roles mechanic splits players into multiple different roles, such as good or bad. However, nobody knows what anyone else's role actually is, although normally the evil team knows each other. A common example is werewolf, where the good team needs to figure out who the werewolves are and execute them before the werewolves kill everyone. The next part of roles with asymmetric information is asymmetric, also known as variable player powers on Board Game Geek. In a game with asymmetrical powers, each player has a distinct ability or win condition. These can be more minor effects, such as in Cosmic Encounter, where everyone has a unique power attached to the alien they play, or more complex, such as in Root, where every faction in the game has a totally unique way to interact with the game and unique win conditions. The final piece of roles with asymmetrical information is information. This is less of a set mechanic and more so the concept of knowing things about the current game state or other players, such as what cards your opponent has, or in the case of the hidden roles mentioned earlier, knowing what role another player might be. Now that I've discussed the three major parts of roles with asymmetrical information, it's probably easy to understand what exactly roles with asymmetrical information is. In short, it is a common subset of the previously mentioned hidden roles mechanic, where all players have information based on the unique role or power that they started the game with. Hopefully that makes sense. But if it still isn't clicking or you want to see an example, look no further than Blood on the Clocktower, one of my personal favorite board games and a near perfect use of this mechanic. Blood on the Clocktower plays similarly to Werewolf in that there's a good and an evil team. The good team is attempting to try and execute the demon, while the evil team wants to kill everyone in town until there are only 2 players remaining. One thing that really makes Blood on the Clocktower stand out from other social deduction games is that each player on both teams has a unique role that gives them totally unique information and a unique ability. Some of these roles include the empath, who learns how many of their neighbors are evil, or the investigator, who learns that one of 2 different players is a minion. Or on the evil team, you might find the Scarlet Woman, who turns into the demon if the demon dies. Another important part of Blood on the Clocktower is the storyteller, who is pivotal to the game. The storyteller is not on either team, and their entire goal is to make sure the game remains balanced and fun for both teams. To do this, they have a number of responsibilities, such as choosing which roles are in the game and relaying info to players during the night phase. The storyteller also chooses what information players get when applicable. Some info is relayed as a set number, but other info is chosen by the storyteller, such as which role or players the investigator learns. This is especially true when drunkenness or poisoning enter the equation, which are ailments that affect players and remove their ability while they are affected. In order to ensure that players don't realize they are affected, the storyteller still gives information roles their info, but is allowed to lie about what the player is learning. Drunkenness and poisoning really help to keep the game interesting, as players can never be 100% certain that even their own information is true. One role that uses drunkenness is aptly named the Drunk, who thinks they are another role on the good team but is actually the Drunk, which means that all of their abilities are malfunctional and they can get completely false info. A role that uses poisoning is the Poisoner, who can inflict poison on any player until the following night. Since each player has unique info based on their role, this is a prime example of roles with asymmetrical information. Players must talk to other players throughout the game about what they've learned and try to deduce who is evil, while the evil team is encouraged to lie and muddy the water. But nobody except the storyteller ever truly knows what is happening. Well, except for the spy, who is evil and actually does learn everything that the storyteller knows. The game has a number of different scripts, which are different sets of characters. The base game has 3 different scripts, varying in complexity, but there are tons of experimental characters online that you can make your own custom scripts with. I highly recommend giving Blood on the Clocktower a try, as it's an amazing social deduction game and is personally one of my favorite board games. Hopefully now that you've seen an example of roles with asymmetric information, you can understand why it's such a cool and unique mechanic. It takes the best parts of a number of other mechanics, and when applied to a game such as Blood on the Clocktower, it makes for an incredible experience. Thanks for watching.